Picture dinner out tonight. A family of 4. One sit-down restaurant. The total tops $100 once tax and tip land. That number used to feel absurd, and now it barely registers. Here is the strange part. The 6 chains I want to walk through are not obscure names. Nobody has forgotten them. These are the places with the line out the door. The booze your parents took you to. The drive-thru you knew cold. Something shifted. And it did not happen loud. Prices crept up. Portions shrank. The food got colder. The bill got warmer. But the people leaving are not making a scene. No anger reviews. They just stopped showing up. Let me be straight with you first. This is not a sad story about friends dying. Not really. Because that quiet exit millions are making right now, it might be their smartest money move in years. You are not losing a restaurant. You are taking your wallet back. And I want to say this up front. I am not doing this as some expert on the stage. I am doing it the way you would. At your own kitchen table. I sat down with the receipts. I ran the numbers. I read the fine print. Nobody reads out loud. That is where this comes from. Not a title. So think of me less as a guy telling you what to think. More like someone across the table saying, hey, look at what I found. We are counting down 6 chains heading toward collapse in 2026. Number 6 to number 1. But we read them like a bill you actually understand. We are not here to mourn anything. We are here to add it up. Where the money went. What you are really paying for. And why the machine breaking these 6 is the same one leaning on your rent. Your groceries. A paycheck that never stretches. Let us start with the loudest fight in the business. Number 6 is Wendy's. The company is preparing to shut down somewhere between 300 and 350 restaurants. In fast food, that became one of the loudest stories of 2026. But ask the people who actually pull in on a weeknight. The story did not start with a press release. It started with the receipt. Out in the suburbs and small towns, folks still do what they have done for decades. Finish the shift, point the car home. Roll up to the window, order the usual. Except something feels off now. The sign looks the same. The logo looks the same. The burger looks the same. What changed is the feeling. That quiet sense that a fast, cheap meal no longer pays you back. Here's why that stings with this name. Wendy's was built on being worth it. Dave Thomas did not open it to be fancy. He built it for the tired worker. Someone who wanted hot, quick, and cheap after a long day. For years you pulled in without studying the board. You knew the order. You knew the price. You knew it added up. That trust ran the engine for decades, and it was a deal. And a deal is a promise. You hand over a little money. You get a little relief. That was the trade. Well, break it quietly, and people notice. Not all at once. And you notice on the drive home, they notice when the bag feels lighter than the receipt. And they start keeping score. Then 2026 arrived, and people started pausing. Just a beat longer before they spoke into the speaker. A burger, fries, and a drink now brushes a price fast food was never supposed to reach. Feed a family of 4 and you push toward $50. That is when the math starts running behind their eyes. One person pictures a rotisserie chicken in the Costco cart. Another thinks about the gas that money would buy this week. Another sees a stack of bills that keeps getting taller. And they make the quiet call. Not tonight. Then came the part that turned Wendy's into a lightning rod. The fight over digital menu boards. and something the company floated called demand-based pricing. Inside the building, that is just technology. Data, then but optimization. No tell you, a screen that changes a number the second the system wants. But sit in the car and it lands differently. This is a fine print made visible. What set people off was never the screen. It was the message underneath that every part of the visit got re-engineered just to pull one more dollar from the same meal. Think about what that actually says. The company studied the exact moment you are hungriest. Then it built a screen to charge you for it. That is not a menu. That is a lever. And you are on the wrong end of it. And that is the gap. On one side, a company sees a pricing model. On the other, you watch your dinner get picked. For most of Wendy's life, those two views sat on top of each other. You paid. It felt fair. When that overlap slips, the rest falls on its own. Fewer trips, smaller orders. One more night the family eats at home. Read the comments on any video about this. Someone will tell you their last cheeseburger showed up cold and cost more than a burger as any business cost, and that it was not a fluke. That this is just how the food gets sold now. That is not a bad night complaint. That is a verdict. Someone else names the real culprit, not the cook, not the crew at the window, the bean counters, short-sighted owners chasing a number from an office nobody sees. That is the language people reach for, and it is worth hearing, because it tells you where the trust broke. Nobody organized a protest. Nobody printed a sign. People ran the numbers and walked, one household at a time. And those small choices stack into something huge. Sit with this part. Wendy's used to be the clearest symbol of value the drive-thru had. That was the whole promise. When a brand can no longer prove it is worth the money, the question stops being about Wendy's and it becomes something bigger, whether a fair fast food meal even exists anymore. Number 5 is Red Lobster, and this one is strange. It might be the only name here people are rooting to survive while it sinks. Usually a struggling brand gets a shrug. Oh, I stopped going years ago. Red Lobster gets something else and people tell stories. The graduation dinner, the anniversary, the birthday crammed into a booth, those warm Cheddar Bay biscuits hitting the table before you finish ordering. Some places sell food. Red Lobster sold a feeling that a regular family can still have one special night out without torching the week's budget, and that is why the affection runs deep and why the collapse confused so many people, because almost nobody hated the place. So what happened? For months, everyone pinned it on the shrimp. That famous all-you-can-eat promotion. That was the headline. The meme. The mean part. The line people repeated until it set like concrete. Diners overate. Chain bled cash. The end. But look closer and it thins out fast. A brand does not collapse because people like the deal. The real damage starts earlier, and it starts where you never look. Not the kitchen, not the dining room, the paperwork. Here's the turn most people missed. At one point, a huge chunk of the real estate under those restaurants got sold off. On paper, a windfall. A wall of cash all at once. But afterward, the company had to rent back the same buildings it used to own. If you have never seen a move like that, it sounds abstract. The effect is not abstract at all, and rent climbed year after year. And the pressure spread through the whole system like water finding cracks. Pull this thread. You will see it again today. Nobody walks in and reads the lease. But you feel the lease. You feel it when a dish you love leaves the menu. You feel it when the plate comes out smaller. You feel it in the bill that inches up while the meal inches down. That is a different gap than Wendy's. Not the space between a brand and Wall Street. The space between a brand and the families who carried it. And here's what gets me. A lot of them kept coming back anyway. They did not bolt at the first bad night. They gave it another shot. And another. Because they remembered what it was, but memory cannot fix the plate. People notice the quality drift. Dishes that once felt special tasting standardized off a line instead of out of a kitchen. And for a restaurant built on the special occasion, that drift is fatal. You might forget what a meal cost. You do not forget how you felt walking out. Spend nearly $30 on shrimp scampi and leave flat. That feeling outlasts any ad that run. Now it gets bigger this seafood. One viewer said something that stuck. The Red Lobster playbook is not just a restaurant story. It is happening to housing developments. It is happening to farmland. Buy the thing. Sell the ground under it. Load it was right. Let somebody downstream absorb the squeeze. That is the machine. It does not care if it is chewing the seafood chain or a family farm. And once you see the shape of it, you cannot unsee it. This is the part that should worry you. The same math that hollowed out a seafood chain does not stop at seafood. It moves through anything with a roof and a rent check. Apartments, farmland, but storefronts on your own main street. Sell the ground. Collect the rent. Let the people inside carry the weight. That is why the story is bigger than dinner. The saddest part is that Red Lobster did not lose a fair fight. Nobody built a better version and stole the customer. People still want it to make it. They still want to bring their kids and grandkids. But a brand cannot live on nostalgia forever. It has to give people a reason to come back. And when the spreadsheet outranks the plate, the cracks start small. Then they refuse to stay small. Not because customers turned on the brand, because so many still love it. While the thing they love stopped feeling like the place they remembered. Number 4 is KFC. Notice how these talks open the same way. Not with a price, not with a promotion. With a line like this, maybe it is just me. But KFC does not feel like it used to. That sentence shows up over and over. In forums, in comment sections, and between people who used to be regulars. And the twist is, they do not hate it. They grew up on it. For a lot of families, this was never just fast food. It was the fix for a Sunday dinner nobody felt like cooking. The meal that landed after a kid's game. That bucket sat in the center of the table for the whole family to dig into. No reservation. No prep. No waiting. You carried it through the door and dinner was done. That convenience made it different, and that edge is slipping away. In a lot of areas now, a family meal starts around $40. Pushing drinks and taxes, it clears $60 fast. That is when the household math kicks in. On one side, the bucket. On the other, a $5 Costco rotisserie chicken. A couple of sides, enough left over for lunch tomorrow. Not everyone lands the same. But more people take a beat before turning into that lot. One person described dropping it entirely and building a tuna sandwich instead. A can of tuna, a little mayo, onion and celery, salt and pepper. 5 minutes. Better for them. And pocket change next to what that bucket runs now. When your own customers brag about the cheaper thing they make, no ad fixes that. But price is not even the sharpest complaint. The deeper one is that people no longer know what they will get when they open the lid. Some days it is perfect. Some days the pieces are shockingly small. One customer flatly called them pigeon pieces. Some days the coating is exactly right. Other days it comes out soft and greasy, oilier than it used to be. That inconsistency shows up in the feedback constantly. And for a brand that runs on the familiar, that is shame. Folks return to KFC for a single reason above all. They want to know what is in the box before they open it. And this did not happen overnight. Longtime fans will tell you the slide started decades ago, that the chicken stopped tasting like the chicken they grew up on. The buffet that anchored so many locations quietly vanished. The pieces got smaller. Bit by bit, a KFC run stopped feeling like an event. It turned into a transaction. You do not catch a brand drifting on one visit. You notice it years later. And when you finally admit the last few trips all left you flat. Meanwhile, the competition went the other way. Drive past a Chick-fil-A at lunch. The line of cars is almost comical. Raising Cane's keeps opening locations like a growth stock. The chains that stay narrow and stay consistent are pulling people in, which makes KFC's slide harder to explain because Americans did not stop loving fried chicken. They just started getting it somewhere else. And loyalty does not survive that kind of doubt. People forgive a price. They do not forgive a coin flip. Every visit becomes a gamble, good box, bad box, who knows? Once you cannot trust what is under the lid, the reason to drive over evaporates. Nobody wants to bet dinner on a guess. And that is a question KFC cannot answer. For decades, chicken basically meant KFC. Now someone wants a chicken sandwich, they picture Chick-fil-A. They want tenders, they think Raising Cane's. They want it spicy, Popeyes jumps in. And KFC? That is the blank a lot of customers hit. The kernel is still on the sign. The bucket still sits on the menu. But think of the family that carried one home every weekend. That jolt of opening the lid? Gone. Gone. And for a brand that ran on the family table, that is the sharpest loss of all. Number 3 is Pizza Hut. Try it to almost any town, and those red roofs still stand. The difference is how many went dark. One is an insurance office now. One turned into a cell phone store. Another sits empty behind dusty glass. Now, what makes people slow the car is not a craving for a slice. It is missing what used to happen under that roof. Pizza Hut was a destination, not a takeout counter. It was the Friday night nobody wanted to cook. The low-key birthday party full of noise. The Little League team piling in after a game. And for a huge number of kids, it was book it. You finished a book. You earned a free pizza. You begged your parents to go that weekend. Back then, a slice was not just food. It felt like a prize for something you actually. But notice what did not disappear. Pizza did not disappear. People eat as much as ever, maybe more. What vanished was the experience of Pizza Hut itself. In the last several years, hundreds of the classic dine-in spots closed, or got converted into something smaller and colder. The red roofs that were neighborhood landmarks kept blinking off, and something went out with them. The buffet, the packed dining room, family night, the actual reasons a person walked in. Those reasons were never really about the food. They were about a room that held a family for an hour. The noise, the mess, the kids leaning over the table. Take that room away and you are left selling the product. And a product gets compared on price alone. On price, a chain almost never wins against the freezer aisle. Today, the brand feels less like a place, more like an icon on your phone. You open the app, you tap the order, you pay, you wait for a knock. Transaction complete. Faster, sure, but also a lot colder. It trims cost, but it strips out the thing that made the place worth choosing. Think about what that trade cost you. The buffet was never about unlimited pizza, but about wandering the room, talking, letting the kids pick their own slices, killing an hour together with no clock running. An app cannot hand you that. It can only leave a box on the porch. Convenient, yes, but convenience was never why anyone loved the place. And then the bill arrives, and that strips out the rest. One large pizza, some breadsticks, drinks for everyone. That order now clears $30, and after tax, delivery, and tip it clears $40. That is when people actually read the receipt, not because they cannot swing a pizza, because they wonder what they are paying for. A pizza, kin, or a stack of fees wherein a pizza is a constant, especially when the pizza feels thinner, less on top, a skinnier layer of cheese. These are standardized. It looks identical from one state to the next. Meanwhile, a frozen pizza at Walmart runs a few dollars. A crust kit from the local grocery feeds the whole family for a fraction. And the kids build it themselves, so more households make that swap. Not because they turned on Pizza Hut, because the gap that made it worth the drive is gone. That is what makes this one different. Wendy's lost its name for value. Red Lobster, its generosity. KFC, its consistency. Pizza Hut lost the room because what pulled millions of families through those doors was never the pizza. It was everyone around one table. Not a car seat. Not a phone screen. Not a delivery driver at the door. Together, in a spot they actually wanted to sit. As those roofs go dark, people see they are losing more than a chain. They are losing a backdrop of their own childhood. And the easy Friday nights they assume would always be there. Number 2 is Cracker Barrel. After a few hours on the interstate, there is a sight millions of drivers know. The gas gauge drops. The kids in the back ask how much longer. Everybody needs a break. And then that yellow sign shows up at the next exit. For a lot of families, the name alone told everyone what came next. Hot coffee. A proper breakfast. Rocking chairs lined up along the porch. A few quiet minutes before the road again. Had set it apart from nearly every name on this list. Cracker Barrel did not sell food so much as a familiar. Roll through Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, or Georgia, and you knew what waited past that door. In a country stitched together by highways, that certainty is worth more than people admit. Certainty is a strange thing to sell. You cannot photograph it. You cannot put it on a menu board. But people will drive miles out of their way for it. It is why a road-weary family picks a yellow sign over the unknown diner. And it is the first thing they miss when it goes. Which is why the last few years confused so many customers. The trouble did not start with the food. Not with a competitor, and not because families quit road trips. Tens of millions are still out on those highways every year. The visits, the weekend getaways, the cross-state hauls. Truckers still need somewhere to stop. Families still need breakfast. What changed was Cracker Barrel itself. The company launched a full rebrand, the kind with hundreds of millions of dollars behind it, all aimed at a younger crowd. On its face, that sounds reasonable, but the problem was the method. Instead of adding something new, they edited the old things. The exact details longtime customers never knew they loved, until those details vanished. The atmosphere shifted. The layout shifted. Even the feel of walking through the door shifted. And there's the gap again. Management saw modernization. A lot of regulars felt the place that was there slipping away. That makes it the mirror opposite of Wendy's. Nobody drove to Cracker Barrel hunting the newest thing. They drove there because it did not change. That was the whole value. Weaken it, and you weaken the loyalty built on top. And it is not cheap anymore either. Breakfast for two can run past $30 to $40 in a lot of areas. Once you add tax and drinks, the customer does the simple math. If I am paying more, I at least want the feeling I came for. And that feeling is what more of them cannot find. That loss is heavier than it sounds. Change a burger recipe and people adjust. Change the feeling of a place people leaned on for years. That is not updating a menu. You're telling a loyal customer the thing they trusted was never really promised. That is a quiet betrayal. It does not spark a fight. It sparks a slow goodbye. There was no uprising, no angry mob online, just small, almost invisible choices. A family skips a stop this time. A couple picks the diner down the road. A long-haul driver grabs coffee somewhere else. None of it shows up anywhere until it lands in a revenue report. Then they close locations and cancel plans. The saddest part is that so many still wanted to make it. They did not walk away out of hate for the brand. They walked because they no longer felt at home. And how do you measure that? The relief of dropping into a familiar rocking chair after hours behind the wheel. The comfort of a place you stopped at for 20 years. In the end, Cracker Barrel is not struggling for lack of young customers. It is struggling because it forgot why the loyal ones kept coming back. It was never really about the biscuits or the gift shop out front. It was knowing a familiar place waited up ahead, no matter how long you tried. Lose that, and the brand does not just lose customers. It loses the reason it exists. Number one is Red Robin. Drive past a lot of these on a Friday night now. The first thing you notice is not the sign. It is the parking lot. A few years back, finding a space at dinner was a small battle. The dining room was full, but fries kept coming. Kids laughed off the walls. It was the kind of place people wandered into and stayed longer than planned. In plenty of spots now, the scene looks emptier. Because the Red Robin story does not begin at the burger. It begins with a question more families keep asking. Is a night out still worth what it costs now? For years, the whole idea was simple. You walked out with more than you paid for. That is why bottomless fries became a symbol. Not because fries cost much, because the gesture said something. You are welcome here. Stay a while. We are not counting. That message did the quiet work, telling a tired parent to relax. It told a big family they were not a problem. Generosity was never really about fries, it was about feeling welcome. And welcome is the first thing a squeeze takes. But over the last few years, the story flipped. Higher burger prices, smaller portions, fewer staff, longer waits. In many places, a burger with fries and a drink now runs past $20 a head. Now stack a household of four, add tax and the tip, and you are staring at $100 or more. That is when people ask whether the experience still earns the price. And once enough of them ask out loud, things change. More families buy ground beef at Costco. They fire up the grill at home on the weekend. No protest. No slogans. Just quiet swaps. And here is the twist buried in that. The family growing in the backyard is not settling for less. A lot of them will tell you the burger is better. The portion is bigger. The whole thing cost a fraction of the check they used to sign. The restaurant lost a customer. The customer gained a Saturday. A better meal. Money left in the account. That is not a sad ending. From their side of the table, that reads like a win. Then the second pressure showed up, and it has a name now. Chip fatigue. People were always fine tipping for good service. What wears them down is different. Every extra cost gets shoved onto their side of the table. The menu price goes up. The fees go up. The suggested tip goes up, and the experience does not rise to meet any of it. One customer sat down at a Chili's and ordered a few chicken strips and a tea, and found an automatic tip tacked onto the check without ever being asked. A pile of add-ons for a plate that small. Their takeaway was blunt. Not going back. That is the value gap snapping in real time. You are not paying for the meal anymore. You are paying for the meal plus a pile of charges you never agreed to. And that is the mirror for the whole casual dining business. These brands do not lose people over one big blow. They lose them slowly. One dinner at a time. One receipt. One quiet letdown. Red Robin ran on generosity. Huge burrs. Endless baskets. Room to bring the whole crew and not feel the squeeze. The day that generosity stopped showing up, people drifted. And once the welcome is gone, it is brutally hard to win back. That may be the saddest note of all. Red Robin is not just losing customers. It is losing the thing that made anyone want to return. So here's the thread tying all six together. It was never about which chain closed the most stores. The story is the habit change. People eat out less and they read every bill harder. They ask a sharper question about what their money buys. And behind every one of these brands, you keep hitting the same machine. The one that sees a lease instead of a dinner, a pricing model instead of a family. It treats your Friday night as a spreadsheet sells a squeeze. It is the same machine leaning on your rent, your groceries, the paycheck that never stretches as far as it used to. That is not one restaurant's mistake. That is a pattern. And the people who feel it most are doing everything right, working hard, paying their share, playing by the rules, and still watching the ground slide out from under them. Think about the household this describes. Gas, it costs more. The electric bill costs more. Taxes and insurance keep creeping. And somewhere in the middle, a dinner out stopped being a treat. It turned into a line item you have to justify. That is the pressure nobody prints on the menu board. When money is that tight, a $100 family meal is not a splurge. It is a addition with consequences. And more people decide the treat is not worth the cost. That is the quiet weight nobody sees. The parent running the math in a parking lot. A couple deciding one more time to just eat at home. Small choices. Repeated everywhere. Adding up to something the whole industry can feel. But hold on to this, because it is a part these stories miss. Walking away is not a defeat. It is a decision. Every household that skips the drive-thru and grills at home. That builds a sandwich at home instead of the $40 bucket. That pulls a $5 bird out of the Costco cart. They are not mourning anything. They are taking control back. There was no boycott. No hashtag. Just millions of ordinary people running in the numbers and choosing themselves. And that quiet math is redrawing the entire American restaurant map. One kitchen table at a time. It does not look like a movement. There is no Lear, no march, no hashtag trending at midnight. Just a slow, steady boat, cast with every skip reservation, every grocery run that replaces a night out. And it is landing harder on these chains than any protest ever could. So let me turn it over to you. Out of these six, which one honestly surprised you the most? Tell me down in the comments. I read them. Half of what I learned comes straight from you. And if you like pulling apart why everyday life keeps getting more expensive, stick around. There is a lot more coming, and I would rather figure it out with you than hand you a headline and move on.